But at length the shadow returned, and its power increased, and in that time was first made the Council of the Wise that is called the White Council, and therein were Elrond and Galadriel and Círdan, and other lords of the Eldar, and with them were Mithrandir and Curonir. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth on this fine day. Today I want to explore the history of the two White Councils of Middle-earth and their members, for indeed there was a council in the Second Age, and the more well-known council in the Third. While I won't speak too much on the total history of the specific members of these councils concerning their actions outside of the councils, I have other videos on those characters already or plan to make those videos at some point, so please check those out. As always, links for more information are in the description and cards, so please check those out as well. My friends, thank you all for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Relax and enjoy as we explore the history of the White Council. Starting with the first White Council of the Second Age that met in circa 1701 of the Second Age, this council was joined after the Siege of Imladris and the end of the War of the Elves and Sauron. This council met and discussed mostly state matters of the elves, and likely they reflected on the war insofar as I can tell, as they decided that the newly established Imladris or Rivendell would be the stronghold of the elves in Eriador, for Ereinion to the south had fallen during the war. Elrond would be Rivendell's lord, as the vice-regent of High King Gil-galad. It also seems that during the time of this council, Gil-galad would give Elrond his elven ring Vilya for safekeeping. Now, the members of this council aren't explicitly mentioned, but surely Gil-galad and Elrond were members, and since they were in Imladris at that time, Lady Galadriel and Lord Celeborn would surely be members of the Second Age White Council, and perhaps even their daughter Celebrian would take part in it. Lords Círdan and Glorfindel were also likely members, as well as other elf lords and perhaps ladies of that time. Now, it's speculation on my part, but I might also imagine that this White Council of the Second Age, or at least some of its members, would also meet from 3431 to 3434 of the Second Age, to make plans to stop Sauron during the War of the Last Alliance, as elves, men, and dwarves made ready for war. Whether it was with the end of Gil-galad, who was presumably the leader of this White Council, or it was due to the fall of Sauron at the end of the Age, this White Council of the Second Age was seemingly disbanded after the War of the Last Alliance. Coming now into the Third Age, the wizards of Middle-earth arrived about 1,000 years into the age, and some of them would be important actors within this council. However, it took until the year 2463 of the Third Age, after Saruman returned from business in the east, and a fell and dark presence returned to Dol Guldur, that the more renowned White Council of the Third Age, who may have named themselves in honor after the Council of the Second Age, was formed. Galadriel summoned the first meeting of this council that was formed to unite and lead the West in resistance against the Shadow. Before the council had been formed and Saruman had returned from the east, however, Gandalf had investigated Dol Guldur some years before, and had ousted the Shadow at that time, in 2063, creating the Watchful Peace. But that feat was attributed to the White Council at large, and the Shadow had indeed returned since then. The members of this White Council that would oppose the Shadow would be Saruman the White, Gandalf the Grey, Lord Elrond Half-elven, Lady Galadriel, Círdan the Shipwright, and also likely Lord Celeborn, Lord Glorfindel, and perhaps other lords of the Eldar. Whether or not Radagast the Brown was a member of the council is up for debate, but surely he would have aided the council in its endeavors if he was ever asked to. Now, although Galadriel had summoned the council, she looked to Gandalf the Grey, whose wisdom was perhaps greatest of all the members to lead it. But in his wisdom he refused, taking no ties and no allegiances to any except the Valar who had sent him, and so too did he wish to be free to live abroad and wander, and not to be subject to any summons. And so Saruman, whose knowledge of the devices of Sauron were greater than any of the members, took up the leadership of the White Council, for he too was the chief of the Order of the Wizards. But Saruman, in his pride and jealousy, would begrudge Galadriel's nomination of Gandalf. At the second meeting, the council met in Rivendell to discuss Gandalf's findings in Dol Guldur. Gandalf, who went to Dol Guldur in 2850, discovered that the dark presence therein was Sauron, not some lesser servant of darkness. And so the wizard brought his findings to the council the next year in 2851, and he urged an attack on Dol Guldur. Saruman, however, who then already wanted the ring for himself, had grown jealous of Gandalf and hated him because of his rivalry with the Grey Wizard, and he spoke against this proposed attack on Dol Guldur, saying that the One Ring must have gone down the Anduin out to sea, and Sauron would never recover it. While he spoke out against Gandalf and his plan, the Grey Wizard sat apart from the others, smoking his pipe and not speaking. Once the meeting was adjourned, Saruman criticized Gandalf and his silence and smoking, to which Gandalf replied that Saruman would not wonder at it if he used it himself, and he would find that the smoke cleared his mind of shadows within, and that it actually gave patience to listen to error without anger. Gandalf then spoke of how it was an art of a little folk to the west, not that Saruman would take much account of them in his high and important policies. Of course, this just angered Saruman, and the White Wizard said he knew Gandalf joked, but that Saruman knew he was an explorer of small, childish things. But his time was his to spend, and that for Saruman the days were too dark for small things of peasants, as he called them. Gandalf did not laugh at these insults, nor did he say a word. He just smoked out rings and put up his hand to grasp at them ere they vanished. Then he got up and left Saruman, who was silent and in a dark mood of doubt and displeasure. There are different versions of how this story went, but Saruman was ultimately made suspicious of Gandalf, for it seemed Gandalf was implying he knew Saruman wanted the ring for himself, and was grasping at it. Or that since Gandalf was smoking the halfling's leaf, he knew there was some connection between the One Ring and the hobbits already. Of course, while the former may have been true, and Gandalf was perhaps suspicious of Saruman, even though Gandalf would still trust Saruman until his betrayal at Orthanc during the events of The Lord of the Rings, the latter could not have even been possible, for Bilbo had not been born yet, let alone had there been any connections between the hobbits and the One Ring yet. But Saruman may have assumed much reflecting upon this event for the many years to come, up until and after his betrayal. Although nothing was truly done because of Saruman's filibuster during the council, Elrond spoke to Gandalf that he forbade the One Ring would be found again, and that war and the end of the age would come. It seemed a second darkness would come after all, unless some strange fate delivered them from it. But Gandalf said many were the strange chances of the world, and that help would come from the hands of the weak when the wise faltered. Indeed, the wise were faltering in their mighty councils, and though they had the strength to combat Sauron then, they failed to do so. The council would meet again in 2941 of the Third Age, when it became clear to Gandalf that with or without the One Ring, Sauron would become too powerful for them to overthrow if they continued to do nothing. He had to be ousted from Dol Guldur and opposed. This time Saruman, the head of the council, assented, wanting to stop Sauron from being able to search the River Anduin for the ring. And so it was that the White Council finally acted, launching their assault on Dol Guldur, and their combined strength was enough to oust him from his fortress in Mirkwood, and some measure of peace was brought back to that dark forest for a time, during the quest of Erebor. But still, Sauron anticipated this move, and his retreat from Dol Guldur was but a feign, for his servants, the Nine Nazgul, had made Mordor ready for his return, and so he willingly fled from Dol Guldur and returned to Mordor to rebuild Barad-dûr and make ready for his war on the west. While the White Council had a short-lived victory, it was hollow and late indeed, for it is likely that had they acted at the last meeting, almost 100 years before, they would have injured Sauron and his plans far more. And so it came to pass that after Sauron's open declaration of his return to Mordor in 2951, the White Council met one last time in 2953, and discussed then the Rings of Power. Saruman feigned that he had discovered that the One Ring had indeed passed down the Anduin to the Great Sea. He revealed much of ring lore that quieted Gandalf's fears about Bilbo's ring, and though Gandalf might have consulted with Saruman about the One Ring, something always held him back from doing so. This was likely doubt and even fear of Saruman's true intentions, for indeed after this meeting Saruman went back to Isengard and his Tower of Orthanc, and he would not take counsel again with the wise, falling in years to come to his own ambition and the evil counsels of Sauron. And while members of the council would meet and discuss great matters in years hence, such as Gandalf at Isengard with Saruman in 3018, in the revelation of Saruman's betrayal, or the Council of Elrond that same year, or even when a majority of the White Council spoke in the lands of the North on the return journey after the destruction of the One Ring in 3019, or in many other moments, there would never again be a full meeting of the White Council after the one in 2953, for the head of the council betrayed the West, and Gandalf's foretelling of lesser hands helping when the wise faltered was true. Gandalf the White would seemingly take up the mantle as the leader of the White Council, and even the leader of the Wizards, for he acted with the authority to cast Saruman from the Council and Order of the Astari during the events of the War of the Ring. It's fascinating, for upon my reflections while making this video, it actually seems that the White Council, while the members were individually powerful, and while together the Council was made of the most powerful beings in Middle-earth during the Third Age, did not accomplish that much together as the White Council, and mostly because Gandalf did not take up the mantle of leadership at the very beginning. While I respect this decision and Gandalf's aversion to the acceptance of power in general, One of Gandalf's only character flaws is his reluctance to believe in himself, and that made the council far less effective than it otherwise might have been with him leading it. Saruman made it rather ineffective, and Sauron may have been thwarted earlier and perhaps more often had Gandalf's advice and counsel been acted upon. Gandalf does, however, go on to use his freedom from the council to do many great actions by himself, advising the leaders of peoples to take action, and he also amended many of the evils of Saruman in his fight against Sauron. It's rather interesting to think about all of this, and how the actions of all of these characters impacted the greater fate of the world in the White Council. But it's also interesting to see how much more they could have done. And so we come to the end of our tale about the White Councils of Middle-earth. From this tale we see that the ability to act must be balanced with the will to take those actions. If we are able to help others or the world at large in any way, we should. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video on the White Council. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts, questions, additions, and corrections concerning the two White Councils? Let me know in the comments below. The White Councils are really fascinating and powerful groups of individuals, and I believe the Council of the Third Age would have flourished more if Gandalf had led it, just as Galadriel had wanted him to. Gandalf did not want power, which was why he should have had it. To further support the channel, please check out our music channel, Facebook, Twitter, merch, and Patreon for a podcast and Discord server. All of those links are in the description below. I want to shout out our Valar tier patrons: Adrian De La Tour, Chris Ortner, Peter Shepard, Jonathan Putnam, Mark Kralik, Blair Scout, and Tobias Goldner, Ryan Ramsey, Merton, John Hume, Tom Bombadil, Ridgie93, Jennifer Wood, Sam McBee, and Matt Sabach. Thank you guys so much, and thank you to all of my patrons. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with another timeline of Art of Video discussing the founding of Gondor and Arnor and the end of the Second Age. Everyone, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one, my great friends.